there, my name is Irene, and in this video, we're going to be talking about architectural columns, how we can create them, how we can customize them, and how we can place them within our project. So let's get to it. Alright, so here we have a project that I started in my previous video. We're basically building a little retail space. And in the previous video, we basically created the walls. What I want to do in this video is create and place the columns that we can see. If you cannot see them well, I can switch back to a wireframe view. And basically, you're going to see that I have 4 columns, one in each corner, and they are of 2 different sizes. So let's get started with columns. First of all, columns are an interesting one because they are a geometry that you can find in the architecture tab and in the structure tab. And this should tell you something about the nature of columns, which is that same as with walls, you have structural columns and you have architectural columns. So same as in the case with walls, structural columns are going to be analytical for structural analysis. So you can have like loads packed into them. You can put rebar into them if they are concrete columns, but they're basically like, the kind of columns that you cannot move that column to a different location. Architectural columns, on the other hand, are a little bit different. Like they do not need to have a structural load and they can serve multiple purposes. So one of the purposes is what you see in this kind of like preview that Revit is giving you, which is as a wrap. So if you have a structural column that is ugly, you can wrap it with an architectural column. This is why in my previous video about walls, I was saying that you can ignore the walls and just draw over them because architectural walls will merge with any other walls that you have in your model because they are designed to integrate with the rest of the architectural elements. The other situations in which you would use an architectural column is, for example, purely decorative purposes. So let's say that, I don't know, like maybe my retail space is very inspired by the Villaggio or something like that. So I want it to be Roman as hell. And I want to have Roman columns everywhere. Or the other instance in which you use architectural columns is for stack columns. So if you're not familiar, stack columns are basically hollow columns, and their purpose is to allow to pass basically mechanical elements through multiple levels. So if you have HVAC, plumbing, electrical data, all of that stuff that needs to go through multiple levels, you can create a stack column so they can all be in the same place. So in the case of our project here, I'm going to be working with architectural columns because once again, I am not an engineer and nobody has told me what these columns are made of. I can, if later an engineer comes and tells me oh yeah, those are concrete, I can come and replace them. But again, if you do not know, just make them architectural and that way they will integrate with your project. So I'm going to go with architectural column and you will see that the architectural column comes with a single family loaded, which is the rectangular column, and it has a couple different types preloaded for the dimensions. And you immediately should be able to notice the fact that this column is not the same size of our column. None of them are actually. Even the 18 by 18, which is the smallest one, nope, still too big. So basically what we're going to need to do with our columns is the same thing that we did with our wall. We're going to need to customize them to set them up to match the reference drawing. And in fact, it's funny that I mentioned the walls. It's almost like I know what's coming next, which is the fact that same as with the walls, you want to set up the parameters of your columns before you place them. And in the case of columns, you are going to have the same height parameter that you have as walls because your columns, at least I hope, your columns should always go from the floor to the ceiling. Otherwise, they're not columns, they're a pedestal, and they're not structural, and the whole building is going to come down. So super important, it is important with walls, but it is even more important with columns that they should always be connected at the bottom and the top to a level. So the very first thing that I'm going to do before I create anything else, I'm going to go in my properties of my column and I'm going to set up my height to go to my underslab. And then what I'm going to do next is same as I did with my wall. I can come here and place a column if I want to, just to show you the fact that, yeah, man, they're not the same size. This is not accurate. So what I need to do here, I'm going to escape. And what I want to do is I want to check what is the actual size of my column. And remember, we have 2 column types. We have these little guys here and we have these bigger, longer boys over here. So I'm going to go DI for dimensions and I'm going to measure. This is where one of my columns is. Christ, metric. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love metric. It's just that if you have your references in metric and you're drawing in imperial, boy, you are up for a true party. So I think that they are the same thickness. Yes. So at least I don't need to repeat those dimensions. Awesome. So I have my dimensions and now I can start creating my custom columns. So I'm going to select the first one of them. And same as with my walls, the dimensions of a column are not an instance parameter. They're not specific to each column. They are instead a type parameter. So I'm going to go to edit type. And you're going to see that in the case of columns, it's a little bit easier because columns are not system families. They're just families. So I can just come here and change the thickness. But remember, never mess up with the original. I'm going to duplicate my column and then I can mess up with the dimensions. So I'm going to go duplicate. And once again, you can round up if you want, but I don't recommend it. I think things should be the size that they are. So I'm going to make my column 11 space 13/16 inches by 11 space 13/16 inches. Enter. And now what I'm going to do is just a value again. So it's going to be 11, 13, 16 inches. Enter. And for the second one, I'm just going to Control C, Control V. You're going to see that there's other dimensions here, offset base, offset top. You can ignore those for the time. We're not going that hard in this video. So you're just changing the depth, you're changing the width, and when you apply, you're going to go OK. And now your column has changed. Isn't she lovely? Beautiful. Now, one thing that I like to do is I will set up my first column, and then instead of setting up the second one, I will just copy it. The reason that I like to do this is because sometimes the inference points that you have in Revit don't necessarily align with the inference points that you have in AutoCAD. So for example, for columns, your inference point, basically where you're picking up the column, is always going to be the center of that column. But when you're working with a CAD reference, you may not have any kind of like inference line in the center. So you can only see kind of like the corners of the column. So because of that, I'm more used to drawing a single column, placing that column, and then just copying it to the other position. So I can go CO for copy, and then see, now I can pick this corner or a midpoint. I can pick whatever I want. So I'm going to pick this corner here, and I'm going to put it there. Bam. And what I want you to notice in the 3D view is see how my column basically just fuses with my walls. So this is why I make my walls go past where the columns are. Because either way, when I place the column and the wall are going to merge. So it doesn't really matter, but this way my wall has a like nice perimeter definition, so to speak. So that's 2 columns, and now I have 2 more columns to make. So once again, we're going to go back to architecture, back to column, back to architectural column. Architectural columns, unfortunately, don't have a quick key. If you use them often enough, maybe you want to consider adding a quick key. And what I'm going to do is this time I'm going to start with this guy just so I don't have to type all the values again. Instead of placing it, I'm just going to go straight to editing because I know that it needs to change, and I'm going to duplicate it. And the second guy is going to be 11, 13, 16th. Oh, cancel. I need to see the number. I did not see the number. There you go. Now I can duplicate. This is going to be 11, 13, 16th multiplied by 2 feet, 1 inch, and 1532. Okay, and I'm going to select this value here, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it. Now, should I paste it in the depth? Should I paste it in the width? It is absolutely irrelevant because you can change this at any point. So I'm just going to put it anywhere, and I'm going to go apply, and I'm going to go OK. And now see, oh no, my column is looking in the wrong direction. It's okay, just press the space bar, and then it flips. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So I'm going to go and place my column, and see how here I don't have a clear placement point. Like I can kind of like guesstimate where it should be, but I can't quite control it. So in those cases, what I prefer to do is just to place my column to the side, and then I can use my align tool to make sure that it is aligning exactly where I want it to go. So I'm going to go AL for align, and I'm going to click on my wall, and I'm going to click on my column. Now this time I can lock because I am aligning my column to my wall, like the actual Revit architectural columns and walls that I've created. So basically what that is going to mean is that if for whatever reason in the future I need to move my column or my wall, they will move together. So Revit geometry, yes, you can lock those to each other, but you should not align and lock Revit geometry to AutoCAD geometry. So I can lock those guys, and then I'm going to align and lock this guy as well. And there is my first long column. Now for the second one, I'm just going to go CO for copy, and then see, now you're going to see how it is much easier because see, there is my point, and I can just place it. See? So you have a lot more control over the, oh no, and I still managed to screw it up. Yay me. True talent comes in small spans. Actually, oh, interesting. Yes. So this is why I hate working with AutoCAD. Because AutoCAD is not precise. So what's happening here is that basically the AutoCAD wall is actually a mess. Like, see, it's not even touching the column. And then by the time that it gets down here, it's just like completely overlapped. So if you are unsure of whether your Revit elements are properly aligned to each other, because that should be the priority, the Revit elements should be aligned to each other. One thing that you can do is you can temporarily hide the cat drawing. The way that you can do that is by selecting the cat drawing, right click, and then you can hide element or category. In this case, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to go element. And there you go. Now you can just see the Revit elements. And basically what you want is you want the column and walls from Revit to be aligned to each other. An easier way to check it is either in the 3D view, like if one of them would not be aligned, I'm going to show you here, I'm going to force it. If one of them would not be aligned, let me see if I can put it there. There you go. See, if one of them is not aligned, you're going to see these kind of like little break that is indicating that one of them, it's protruding. The other way that you can see it is in the elevation views. So if I go to, for example, what side is going to be this? This is going to be my east. So if I go to my east side, you're going to see that there is a line there. If the drawing would be properly aligned, you should not be able to see that second line. So again, there's different ways that you can check this. This is why I always like having the 3D view, because it just allows me to very quickly verify if my information is, correct. And then when you're done, if you want to get your AutoCAD drawing back, all you have to do is go down here in the visibility settings, where the little light bulb is, click on it to turn on hidden geometry. And basically you're just going to select your cat drawing, right click, and you're going to unhide the element. And then you can turn off the little light bulb. And there you go. Your cat drawing is back. And if you want to see just the Revit stuff, you can turn on hidden line. And there you go. That's looking really nice. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find it helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments. Give this video a like, maybe think about subscribing. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking to me. And I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.